Hi, I'm Naomi Olutayo, and I partner with women to transform their companies to mirror the highest vision that God has given them with the power of brand strategy. Today, we are going to be talking about your brand's ego self versus its highest self, and how succumbing to your brand's ego self leaves room for the chameleon effect to really distort the true nature of your brand. Now, first, what is your brand's ego self? Your brand's ego self is obligations, things that you should do, things that you say that I need to do this because I should do this, things that you do that are expected of you as a high achieving, well-rounded, successful business owner. Things that are reasonable, logical, rational decision making, the status quo, what your competitors are doing, what has already been done. Things that you do that are ultimately against the highest vision that you have for your brand. The parts of yourself that you may have shut off to be practical and to make sure that you succeed. The parts of yourself that have held back creatively because you feared failure. That's your brand's ego self. Now, your brand's highest self is ultimately illogical. It's faith. It mirrors the highest vision that God has given you when you first had the seed of a thought to build this. It's creative risks and innovation. It's financially irresponsible. It seems crazy, it doesn't make sense, and you've never seen it done before. It's expansion. Your brand's highest self may seem all those things, but really, that's just the reality that you were always meant to usher in. The reason why it's important to identify the difference between your brand's ego self and your brand's highest self is because you are here because you have this knowing that, or not even just a knowing, but a deep understanding that what you have built and where you've come from the beginning to now is not the standard of excellence for yourself. It's not God's best for you. It's not your best for you yourself, period. So throughout the rest of this video, we're going to be deconstructing more of how the brand ego self shows up, the chameleon effect, and hopefully my goal really is to empower you and to give you the frame of thought to help you start implementing your highest self in your brand so you can show up and receive what was always meant for you on the other side of this business as it shows up in the best version that it can be, achieving its potential, essentially. Now, the major side effects of the brand ego self, as I've been saying, shows up in the chameleon effect. And the chameleon effect has, I didn't even count this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Has 10 major side effects. The first one being mediocrity. Mediocrity says, this is good enough. Mediocrity is a brand that gets lost in a sea of similar companies and it stays in their comfort zone. They're not creatively innovating. When if as a customer, I head to your website and I have no compelling reason to shop with you as opposed to another brand, a more well-known brand, a more trustworthy brand, a more long-standing brand because you just sell products. In my last video, I talked about the difference between a business that sells products and a brand. So in that equation, you would be the business that sells products. You lack oomph, you lack spirit and soul. Your brand's essence is dull or non-existent. You're just mediocre. And although you may have sales, I could imagine that a lot of the reason why people would purchase from you is because of your prices, or maybe they purchase from you because they see something that you like, but you know that you could do better. You know that you could have the impact and the influence and the cultivated community and identity that people gain from shopping with you, and just the overall aesthetic that you have been desiring all this time. You could do better, and that's mediocrity. The second side effect is misalignment. That's the gap between the brand's true vision and its current reality. It's a disconnect that muddles the brand's messaging, confuses its audience, and dilutes its impact. Misalignment leads to confusion within the brand's culture, customers, and community, and prevents the founder's visions from being fully realized. In my brand strategy creation and coaching container, the brand alignment system, I work with my clients to discover misalignment within their brands. I personally call it the 4 points of misalignment, or the 4 points of alignment in branding. When there are points of misalignment in your brand, let's say the messaging doesn't match the customer, or maybe how clear your messaging should be isn't there enough, so it kind of repels the people that you desire. Or maybe could even just be what your business exists as just doesn't fit with what it should be. That's misalignment. And misalignment hurts everything. That's one of the most damaging side effects of the chameleon effect, if I'll be honest, because nothing could stand properly. Think of a table that has 3 different or 4 different sized legs, or 3 legs in different lengths. It's just gonna wobble. It's not gonna stand upright. It's not functional. And although you probably could use it functionally, but not in the way it was intended, its purpose as a table was to stand upright, equally standing on each leg, so you can eat, work, whatever. Same with your business. As someone who has received the vision from God or universe, or has been inspired divinely to build what you've built, who has been felt compelled to take inspired action towards, actualizing and materializing this brand, this business onto this earth, that's purpose. You didn't start this as a cash grab. You didn't start this as like a silly side thing that you didn't really care about. You deeply care about this because it's attached to your purpose. The fulfillment of your life's purpose is attached to this thing that you're building. So when there's misalignment and things aren't fully actualized in the sense of, your vision, your purpose, your messaging, its creativity and its impact, you're just not going to be seen the way that you desire to. Something is going to forever feel off. And if it doesn't show up in your business, it's going to show up in how you show up in your everyday life, in your parenthood, in your relationships, your friendships, in any other business that you build. How you show up for yourself internally, and how fully or wholly that you show up in yourself, oftentimes there is a reflection of how you show up in business too. This third side effect is noise. Noise is the villain that overwhelms and distracts. It drowns out the brand's unique voice and constant chatter from the competition and market. It's a chaotic background that makes it hard for the brand's message to be heard, seen, and remembered by its ideal audience, causing frustration and lack of clarity in communication. Basically, you would just be like the car that's honking in the background when I'm trying to record a video. That's really what it is. And that noise is caused by misalignment. For whatever there's misaligned in there, it could be maybe you're not specific enough about your who your target customer is, your most aligned customer. Maybe the way that you show up in your messaging is just diluted because you're scared to take those risks, to stand for something. Maybe you've just been copying what works for other people, so your true self is never fully actualized in your brand. I mean, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. It's just gonna be chatter and noise. Do you know when you scroll on TikTok and you see all those ads and you just don't care about it? Like, I get this ad for this dietitian app where you can use your insurance. That's something I may have been interested in, but my insurance doesn't work for it. So I just go past it. And every single time I see that ad, I just keep scrolling. Or how many times have you gotten an ad for, like, I don't know, some weird course that they're trying to sell you about e-commerce and I don't know, maybe house flipping, and you're just so sick of it and you don't even pay any mind to it. You just scroll past it. And of course, the fact that those ads are playing, they're obviously getting sales. Obviously people are seeing it and able to get to it. But how many people and how impactfully their ads could have been if they were properly aligned and it didn't show up as noise, it would have been higher. It would have been more effective. The next side effect is complacency. Complacency is the villain that keeps a brand stagnant and unwilling to innovate and push boundaries. It's a temptation to rest on past achievements, allowing the brand to slowly become irrelevant as the market evolves. This makes it difficult for the brand to stay dynamic, fresh, and ahead of the curve. Complacency is one hell of a drug, because what I've noticed about complacency is it makes you feel comfortable where you are, but it also silences the parts of you that are complacency is basically the silencing of your intuition. You're a spiritual person. You know how to talk to our Creator. You hear the Holy Spirit. You are so sensitive to the world and to things and to people and to your business and to your employees and everything, that when you feel the shifts financially, spiritually, everything in your business. You feel it. So to be complacent means that you have ignored so many warning signs, or just your own discernment about you, yourself, the people who work for you, the people who've invested in you. It's just been turned off, and that's why you're complacent. There's no reason to be complacent unless you stop listening to your intuition, to trusting yourself, listening to the warning signs and the signs of the seasons changing in your business. That's what complacency is. The brand that comes to mind is Glossier. They were huge, I think, in like 2014 to 2016, 17-ish. But now, as from my professional opinion as a brand strategist, they come off as a bit dated. Now, I'm not talking in terms of their, I can't speak for, their success monetarily, but I can speak to their success or lack of success concerning people's perception of them, because there was a huge public shift after people discovered, or some of their old employees exposed them for racism and mistreatment in some of their flagship stores in New York City. They made a whole Instagram page exposing them and trying to get people to get the owner to hear them, when the whole brand started off as the owner hearing their audience and really taking and really making a point to make their customers feel heard and a part of the process. How did that happen? How could you allow that? And I know there's so much nuance to business that is beyond the more feminine, creative aspects of it. However, it's just a core tenet of the brand was just not being fulfilled, and look what it ended up as. And I'm so fascinated by their story, because I love Glossier. Like, I had a hair care brand when I was younger, and I applied for their grants that they offered. Like, I used them as just like a point of inspiration, a pinnacle of inspiration for my business and how I would run it. And just to see how it all got distorted, it was just shocking, because that's not what Glossier was known for, but that's complacency. And even up until this point, it took them a minute to really shift gears in how they market to themselves, and how, and even just staying up with their ever evolving and growing audience, because your customers are always growing. Don't forget that. You have to grow with them, because you are building a human brand. But yeah, it's just crazy, but it's not crazy. I don't know the owner. I forgot her name, but for whatever reason, she became complacent, and her brand perception started to become dated. It just couldn't keep up with the trends, and now I rarely ever hear of Glossier. I don't ever hear some of the top influencers talking about it, unless they're talking about its downfall. Complacency is deep, and you don't want to fall for that. The next side effect is fear of failure, which is self-explanatory. You don't take risks because you're scared, or you don't fully show the fullest expression of your brand because you're afraid it might not work. You don't have the validation or the support to carry it through. Maybe you just, God has placed something on your heart, an idea, a product, a way of doing things, a way of operating in your business that goes against every single book that you have ever read, where people are telling you that's stupid, don't do that, be practical, and you feel failing, and that's valid. But it does keep you from being seen, especially you, because this business, again, it's not a cash grab. This business is not just something you do on the side. This is something that is attached to your purpose, your identity. And I don't mean to enmesh you with your brand, but When it comes to following that inner knowing, that the spirit, the voice of the Holy Spirit, and having it materialized on earth, its success is attached to your vulnerability. It's attached to your follow through, or in other words, your obedience. It's attached to fully birthing that vision that you have, or those nudgings in those directions that seem nonsensical, that seem crazy, because that's where the success is. That's your difference. And if you fear failure so much that you just do what everyone else is doing, where you do what's safe, then that feeling that you feel where things just aren't right, or maybe this urgent search to find something more, or the next strategy, the next the next coach, is not going to work. Everything you need for this business and brand to thrive, everything that you need to fully bring this about on earth already exists within you. And a lot of times it's in your vision, your imagination, and it's just waiting for you to materialize it. The next side effect is obscurity. Obscurity is a villain, really, that keeps the brand hidden from those who need it most. It's the force that prevents the brand from being seen, known, and recognized as unique, impactful. As recognized as a unique, impactful force it truly is. Obscurity limits its reach, engagement, and growth. It makes it difficult for the brand to connect with its ideal customers and community. I will say, unless God has called you to obscurity, to grow in obscurity, and to just, be hidden for a little bit, that's different. But I'm talking about forced obscurity due to fear, due to misalignment, due to limiting your true impact, because you are not fully stepping into the role that your brand that could be, that your brand should be, really. The next side effect is fragmentation, which is something that divides the brand's efforts, creating inconsistency in its identity, messaging, and execution. It causes the brand to appear disjointed, losing focus and coherence across various platforms, products, and experiences, and thereby weakening its presence in the market position. So really, you just lack clarity. Another perfect word for that is you just lack clarity because of misalignment. Because of misalignment and complacency and mediocrity. Have you ever heard, I'm sure you have, as a brand owner, I'm sure you have. Have you ever just, you've come across an ad, or you watched an influencer use a product? For me, it was Say Beauty, S-A-I-E. I don't know how they pronounce it, but Say Beauty. Have you ever come across a brand or an influencer using a product, and you see, them, their lifestyle and their community, what they stand for and what they value in a product, and they hear Say Beauty, and it's everything that you've been looking for. So you go on the website, you look at reviews, and then you end up in Sephora, and you see the display, and then the Sephora worker comes and tells you about the product and says why she loves it, and then you go home and you watch tutorials, and you follow their Instagram, and you sign up for their newsletter, all those things. That's an experience. That scenario, I just tapped in to Say's world, because everything makes sense. From the product packaging, to the messaging, to the copy, to the influencers, to just what it means for me to have it, and what I was trying to achieve, which is a very specific style of makeup that I wanted, that I saw the influencers having and executing well. I was just introduced into their world, and it all made sense. In our world, the earth, things may be contradictory, but they all complement each other. Like, things make sense. Like, there's no law that contradicts gravity. And all the other laws, they wouldn't be a law if they contradict the already established and known laws. You know what I mean? It's the same for your brand and what you're building. There has to be continuity in what you're building. And a lot of times when we are complacent, or we are just a bit mediocre, things make sense, but on a very muted scale. And so it places us in obscurity, because the fullness of who we are is what attracts and draws people to us. We make decisions in obscurity. It's like we make the decision to not be seen fully and actually. We make And we make decisions in obscurity. We make the decision to not be seen and understood and received well by our most aligned customers in their entirety. You see how they're all connected? It's like I see it in my mind like a circle graph, and each point is around the circle, like noise and misalignment and mediocrity, and they all have levels, and you could be at different points. I hope you know what I'm talking about, but yeah. The next point is overwhelm, which overwhelm burdens the founder. It burdens you with too many competing priorities, and it leaves little time to focus on strategy and vision and creative growth. It clouds decision making, it drains your energy, and keeps your brand from moving forward with clarity and intention. Now, I have a very perfect example for this. I'm not a product-based brand. I used to have one, but for this business that I'm building, my brand strategy agency, We Are Boundless Studios, I had a huge case of overwhelm due to my misalignment. I was very much rejecting what I knew this brand should be, this business should be, and what I should be doing, and what I should be charging, because I was rejecting a lot of parts of myself. So when I would try to execute, and when I would try to achieve certain goals, it just wasn't clicking. Although I had clients, although I was making, I was working with people, and I was getting somewhere, I just wasn't, even if, I was getting somewhere, it just wasn't working. And even if I had, achieved my goal 10 times over, it just wasn't right, because I was overwhelmed, I was stressed. Like, everything I was doing was from obscurity, right? I wasn't being seen by the people I wanted to be seen. I wasn't getting the clients that I wanted to have. And I had to realize that this overwhelm was because I was fragmented. When things are fragmented, they're not clear. It's like looking into cloudy water, like dirty water almost. It's not clear. And that when things are not clear and you're overwhelmed, that's energy expended trying to understand, trying to build when you're just so clouded and so much judgment. Maybe the reason why nothing is ever smooth in your business and your product development, even in your brand building, community building, customer acquisition, is because you've just lost focus of who you are as a brand, or you've chosen not to look at it like I did, because I was scared and because I didn't feel like I was capable of achieving it. That's something to really think about, because it shows up in your brand. And how many brands have you seen? Have you come across and they just come off salesy, or you just aren't inclined to buy it? Or maybe a good example are celebrity brands. There are a lot of celebrity brands that, people buy it because they love the person, but if the person wasn't there, the brand wouldn't be anything. It would just be a business that sells products. I'll link that video down below so you can have some more background. The next side effect is imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is the internal villain that sows seeds of doubt in the founder's mind, in your mind, and makes you question your capabilities and the value of your brand. It keeps you from fully stepping into your role as an industry leader. It disrupts your confidence, and it hinders your brand's potential from growth and impact. From fully actualizing into the fullest version your brand should be. I'm going to keep saying, the standard for you is different. You didn't start this business out of a random side thing. This is, for a lot of you, this is your life's purpose. This is the vehicle through which your purpose will be realized and actualized and completed with excellence. So the stakes for you emotionally oftentimes are higher. Maybe you're like me and you looked at the vision that God gave you, which for me, I'll share a part of it. My business, We Are Boundless Studios, or WABS for short, is meant to be a future global initiative and movement. I'm going to be a financial institution. This business is meant to own other businesses and be an investor. It's meant to change the way that business is done, period. And that's a big thing. I was very young when I started this business, and I was still very young. I did not have the education or experience to look into business acquisition and to becoming an angel investor, or even just being a kingdom financier and having turned this into a financial institution. Like, I didn't know how to do that. I mean, even now, I'm still on the road to fully actualizing my purpose and mission for why I'm here, as a person, why God brought me on this earth. But I was so scared that, and I just had no idea how it was possible. And also, even when God gave me the vision for this business and the name and the colors, which I know a lot of you have been received downloads of the colors, the names or the products, ideas. That's how you built this business, off of just divine encounters with spiritual downloads. That's how you built it. That's how you got your ideas. That's where your creativity comes from. You're pulling from the creative source, which is God, the creator, to build this. So I just didn't have the self-belief at the time to really step into it. I didn't have the belief to build what I was called to build. I didn't have the belief to charge what I knew I was supposed to charge, to offer what I was supposed to offer, to even down niche myself to target the people I was always meant to target. I didn't have it in me at that time, but I suffered for it. Everything was hard. I lacked so much alignment. There was so much fragmentation. I was always overwhelmed. Every time I looked at my brand, it just never seemed right. I was always frustrated with it. And even though I was, reaching goals and doing things and getting places and getting interviewed and people coming to me for opportunities, they just never felt right. And even the people I worked with and the things I created, they weren't supposed to be, they weren't supposed to look like that. Because when you build from a place of obscurity, you're setting yourself up to not be seen and understood by your most aligned people. And you are not aligning yourself with your highest vision and purpose. And that is so imperative when you're building a brand as a purpose-led founder. Because everything you do is to serve that purpose. And that purpose is connected to your people, that are the souls that are connected to your brand. If you're serving people who are not for you, you're just wasting your time. You're building on a foundation that is not stable. Lastly, number 10, the last side effect is market saturation. Market saturation is the villain that makes it harder for your brand to carve out its unique space. And you probably feel like there's no room to stand out and innovate in. It just amplifies the noise of the market, your competitors, and it makes differentiation challenging. It causes you to struggle to communicate your unique value to your right customers. As after 9 other side effects, you get the point of how interconnected these all are. If you have one, you likely have the other. If you have market saturation, you're probably overwhelmed. You probably feel failure. You're probably complacent. You know what I mean? But yeah, a core tenet for my work that I do is that there's no such thing as competitors. Especially for you, as somebody who God has called to this, there's no such thing as competitors. I believe that there's a reality where every brand can exist in its highest function and potential and live out its purpose, and the owners and founders or whatever can accomplish what they were set out to do. Why can't there be space for you? Why aren't you being seen with the 8 billion people in this world? And I know you may be targeting maybe a segment of the earth, of course, right? But that's still millions and billions for a lot of you. Some of them, there's still millions. Maybe your desire is to be a billionaire. Who's to say that, it's too saturated, or, you're not big enough, or, you know what I mean? If you feel overwhelmed by market saturation, then you're not in alignment. You're not fully actualizing your brand. Your brand isn't standing out because you're suppressing its true nature, so it can't be seen. It exists in an obscurity. There's space for you. The question is, are you willing to actualize that vision that God gave you, that you were divinely inspired by, and live it out? Because if not, then there's probably not going to be space for you, because there's no space for copycats. There's no space for, brands that are similar. People, customers, me, I am craving newness. I'm craving brands that understand me, that I can just go to and have no friction in the buying process, because I know that's for me. When I buy my future Coach bag, I have a bunch saved to my cart. I'm buying it for a reason, because the coach was made for me. Or maybe for you, maybe it could be Stanley. Maybe you're just that person who loves reusable cups and all the designs, and you're like, that's for me. If it's these brands are successful and have lasted a long time, or at least Stanley's been maintaining its momentum a little bit, because they understood who they're selling to, why they exist, what they're good at. And maybe these brands aren't, they're not, maybe the owners weren't like you, but I can't deny their impact. Maybe they're not like you in the sense that they received the divine inspiration in the way that you did, but I can't deny their impact, and I can't deny that they were meant to be here, and you were meant to be here, and there's a segment of the market meant for you, that is ready for you, that you need to take up space and fill by being your brand's most authentic self. And the more you hold it back by not taking those creative risks, by not being innovative, by not being the first to go and lead and set the tone and set the precedent, and make those big leaps, those big quantum jumps in what's possible and what has been done before, then you're not going to be seen. Because what brand has made it this far, or has gotten the success that they've gotten without doing so? Now, next one I want to talk to you about is how to overcome your brand's ego self and defeat the chameleon. As we've kind of already touched on, you're going to have to boldly reclaim your true identity. And I'm going to tell you what you already know deep down in your spirit. You are an industry leader. You're a culture changer. You're a legacy builder. You're an empire builder. You're a trailblazer, a boundary pusher. You're courageous, and you're a creative innovator. That's who you are. That's what your brand stands for. That's what your brand is. You're the brand that pushes the bounds and defeats the odds and does things that no one has ever seen before. You're the founder who spearheads those initiatives and shows people that things are possible. You're the founder who honors your customers first and sees them as relationships over transactions. You're the founder who sees your customers as people that are collaborating and building this world with you. You're the founder to do things differently. You're the founder to never worry about finances, because you know that because you have submitted this business to God, that you can't fail. Failure is not an option for you. You're a kingdom builder. You're a kingdom financier. That's your identity. The next thing that you need to do to overcome your brand's ego self is to pursue its divine inspired vision without compromise. You have to make the decision today and decide that there's no other brand that exists but the brand that I saw in the vision that God gave me. That a brand that exists in its highest self, that does not dim itself to be practical, or is stressed about how they're going to pay their workers. Your business is one of overflow, of abundance, of success. Commit to that. Commit to the brand that changes the way industries are run, that inspires people to be their best selves, that becomes the brand that all the celebrities are wearing, that becomes a global impactful brand. Choose that. And what do you have to do to actualize it? When I first started out in my business, I was very heavy laden with imposter syndrome. And God taught me how to commit. This is what he told me how to commit to something. He said if your commitment is shown through your financial investment into that vision, and the risks for that vision. So if you're ever wondering am I committed enough? Think about it. What have you invested into not just your brand, but that vision, the brand that your business currently is becoming? And what risks have you taken? And I'm not saying like risks that aren't really risks, because it's those risks that you take that aren't risks because you already know what's going to happen. Not those. I don't mean those risks that you already on paper know it's going to work. I'm talking about those risks that shouldn't work. The risks that people say are stupid. The risks or the ideas that you have where you tell a friend or you tell your coach and they look at you like that's not how things are done. Those are the risks I'm talking about, because those require faith. And because this brand is built by faith and started from the divine, it requires that to carry it through. That's where the overflow comes from. The next way to overcome your brand's ego self is to pursue purpose and trust that God will fund this business. This was one of the parts that I held back on in terms of my own business building and everything, because that's a philosophy that I've lived by. I believe that as long as I'm walking in my purpose, everything I need is already funded. And that is coming from somebody who has not worked a job since they were 17 years old, has traveled the country, and has had all their needs provided for over and over and over again, because I put my trust in what God told me and what he promised me, and he showed up for me. And although I may not be able to relate with you right now in the sense of the business that you're building and the businesses that I have built and how far I've taken my brand, but what I can relate to you with is that I know that when an idea is birthed from the divine, it will be maintained by the divine as long as you submit it to him. You have to be unwavering in your pursuit of fulfilling that purpose. Everything's already worked out. Come from that energy. Everything's already worked out. This business was birthed from you, and it could be maintained by you because you're connected to the creator, the source of everything on this earth. And also just remember, like, this business is the vessel through which you will fulfill your purpose on this earth. This is something that is needed today. And maybe you're thinking, well, why would anyone need, I don't know, maybe you sell lingerie. Why would anyone need lingerie? It's not that serious. You can, use anything. It's important. I'm not going to tell you why it's important, but you know why. You started it out with a purpose. And that purpose, that movement, that vision, that status, whatever that you're cultivating within your brand is necessary. And it's supposed to bring forth something. You know your purpose. And you have to commit to that purpose. Because a purpose is a promise. A promise that you make to God, yourself, and everyone else connected to you through your business. A lot of times when I look up, how to build a brand, people always say, just, pick a purpose, or what's your purpose? And I don't really expound on it that much. But I'm telling you, I'll expand on it for you today. Your purpose is a promise. It's what makes your heart beat. It is from which all flows from you. It's defined. It is for you to do for this world. It's not just a tagline that you place on the back of your website, or something that you only talk about within, your journal or your quiet time. It's something that needs to be fulfilled. And you got to commit to it. The last way to overcome your brand's ego self is to differentiate your brand with authenticity. When I mean be authentic, I mean be true. Be truthful. Who are you? What is your brand? What does it stand for? What is this personality? When you close your eyes and you think about what's your brand, when you daydream about your brand and all that it can be, what are you thinking of? What are the crazy feats that it overcomes? What are they influencing? And how can you show up in the most truest version of itself to do those things? What are those things that you've put aside and said, like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to, that doesn't make sense. For me, it is pursuing business ownership and what's the word? Investment. To me, at the time, that was crazy because I didn't have any money. I also didn't have the experience to do so. But you learn. What is that thing that you don't feel like you have the space for, the material for, maybe you don't have the workers for it yet? Those things, that's your authentic self. Would you like to market to your customers? How would you like to do their packaging? Maybe the idea you have for packaging is to have this very specific, tissue paper and duct tape and box. That's going to end up upping your packaging costs to be like $7 per person. Is that what's been placed on your heart? Is that what's been eating at you this whole time? Then go for it. Everything's already worked out. And those are the risks that I'm talking about, because it honors the customers, but it also honors you as the founder, as the creative director, as the visionary for this brand, because it's true. You don't do things just for money. Money comes always. There's no shortage of money. There's no shortage of anything. You have to come from that perspective so you can show up the highest version of yourself. Your brand can exist as the highest being as it is, the biggest entity that it can be, because you are no longer honoring the bank statements, the profit loss statements. Think of what you're building and those desires that you have, to maybe you want to be a billionaire, maybe you want to, hold the largest market segment in your industry. Those things can happen simultaneously with you fully actualizing your brand into the most incredible, the most daunting, the most nonsensical ways that it can be. And I don't want to say nonsensical because it might sound nonsensical on paper, but it will work. It's just, are you committed to it, to your purpose? Take those creative risks and innovate, because you're a leader. You're an industry disruptor. You're a trailblazer. You're a boundary pusher. You're courageous. And you're connected to the source, the creator of the universe, who birthed this seed of a vision in you that is now materialized into all that it is right now. And you've done an amazing job. But bet on yourself. Trust that your imagination and your creativity is sufficient. Trust that you are enough to follow through in all that you set out to do. And commit to it. Take those risks. Invest in it. And it will actualize. You just have to be committed to it. In the same way that you're committed to being mediocre, if that's you. It takes commitment to be where you are, to maintain it. It's just a shift of perspective now to fully run the distance with where you're heading as a brand. This is your permission. This is your sign to do what has never been done before. This is your permission, and this is your sign to bet on those ideas, those products ideas, those inventions, those innovations that you've been holding off on for the sake of finances, for the sake of not rocking the boat. This is your sign. It will work out, especially you, because you know the creator, you know the Holy Spirit, and he's been guiding you this whole time. You can't fail. In the comments, let me know which one of the side effects has affected you the most. I'm very curious to hear, because I've seen a plethora of them, but I would love to hear from you specifically. But with that, my name is Naomi Olutayo, and I partner with spirit-led female founders of beauty and consumer goods brands and companies to fully actualize their company and turn it into an impactful and magnetic brand with an empowered community and magnetic and unique identity. I appreciate you spending time with me. Thank you for being here. And I'm excited for you to fully actualize your brand to mirror the divinely inspired vision that God has given you from the beginning. Have a good one. Bye.